Welcome to this explainer. Let's just take a breath for a second and really tune in to a very specific, very intimate feeling. You know exactly what you should be doing with your life right now, don't you? You've probably known for months, maybe even years. It's not some grand mystery. Honestly, if someone asked, you could write the entire plan out in your sleep. The job you know you need to leave, the physical health you should be building, the person you fundamentally know you're capable of becoming. And yet, here you are, stuck in the exact same place.
So, why can't you stop wasting your life? Yeah, it's a stark, heavy question to ask, but we really have to ask it. I want to validate that deep frustration you're feeling. You catch yourself endlessly scrolling, just kind of waiting around, telling yourself that this coming Monday will magically be the one where everything changes. But that different Monday never actually arrives, does it? The weeks just blur together, and that gap between who you are and who you want to be only seems to get wider.
But here's the thing that nobody ever says out loud, and it's our first major paradigm shift today. You aren't stuck because you don't know what to do. And you definitely aren't stuck because you're lazy. You are stuck because a quiet, ruthlessly efficient part of your brain has calculated that staying exactly where you are is actually safer than growing. This isn't a character flaw, folks. This is architecture. And until you understand the blueprint of how your mind is built, you're just going to keep losing to it.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the architecture of inertia. If we actually want to dismantle this invisible force that keeps us paralyzed, we first have to deconstruct how it's built, and it all starts with a fascinating concept called familiar misery. See, we tend to think our brains want us to be happy. They don't. Your brain optimizes for predictability. Think about a mediocre life that you have mapped out down to the very hour. The same disappointing job, the same low-grade loneliness, that same 11 p.m. wave of regret. Your nervous system actually treats all of that as safe terrain. Why? Simply because you have already survived this specific pain. Your brain has the coordinates memorized. Change, even if it's a change towards something infinitely better, is completely uncharted. And to your nervous system, uncharted always reads as danger, never as opportunity.
So when you're faced with the subconscious choice between a misery you understand and a freedom you don't, your brain is almost always going to pull you toward the misery. This perfectly explains why people stay in relationships that are slowly eroding them, right? Just to avoid the terrifying blank page of being alone. It's why we stay in careers that are quietly suffocating us, because at least we know the exact shape of that suffocation. A misery you understand just feels a whole lot safer than a freedom you don't.
Which brings us to Section 2, the familiar misery trap.
Your brain is incredibly clever. It knows that if you just sat around feeling completely miserable all day, you might actually hit a breaking point and do something about it. So it runs this quiet daily con on you to keep you trapped in that familiar misery, while making you feel like you're actually moving forward. It's what we call the illusion of progress. You read a self-help book about discipline. You watch a motivational video about finding your purpose. You feel this amazing stir in your chest, a real sense of momentum. But we constantly mistake that feeling for actual movement. Look, consuming insight is not the same as applying it. Your brain literally releases the exact same dopamine for planning a life as it does for actually living one. So you end up with a mind packed full of brilliant blueprints, but a life with absolutely zero building going on.
Let's move on to Section 3, the future self-stranger.
Underneath the familiar misery, and underneath that illusion of progress, sits the absolute deepest mechanism of our inertia. Neuroscientists have discovered something that is frankly wild. When people are asked to think about their future self, the activity in their brain lights up in a way that looks disturbingly similar to when they are thinking about a complete stranger. Let that sink in. When you think of future you, your brain does not see you. It sees some unfamiliar person that you feel absolutely zero real obligation toward.
This neurological disconnect perfectly explains our daily self-sabotage. Why do we eat the thing that damages tomorrow's body? Why do we spend the money that's going to completely panic next month's version of us? I mean, we've all been there with a 2 a.m. online impulse buy, right? Why do we waste hours today that our future selves would beg to have back? It's because you aren't actually betraying yourself. Neurologically speaking, you are betraying someone your brain barely even registers as you.
Now for Section 4, your ancient brain.
This brings us to the ultimate aha moment of this explainer. If you're listening to all this and feeling a heavy wave of guilt washing over you, I need you to let that go immediately. To really normalize these struggles, we have to look back at our evolutionary biology. Your brain is not broken. When you feel that massive resistance to change, that inertia that makes getting off the sofa feel like trying to escape a black hole, you aren't dealing with a personal flaw. You are encountering a perfectly intact, highly evolved survival strategy. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do, to keep you alive.
Think about it. 50,000 years ago, the unfamiliar was never a good thing. The unfamiliar meant predators waiting in the dark. It meant an unmapped cliff you could fall off, or a dangerous rival tribe. It literally meant death, so the brain that survived was the brain that was completely obsessed with the known. Comfort wasn't a weakness for our ancestors, it was their #1 strategy. Every single ancestor who chose the safe, familiar path lived long enough to pass that instinct down to you. But jump to today. Now the unfamiliar is starting a new business, ending a toxic relationship, or taking a bold risk. The stakes have completely changed in the modern world, but our 50,000-year-old software hasn't. Your survival instinct has basically become the very thing keeping you small.
So let's turn the corner and get into Section 5, Escaping the Comfort Trap.
Now that we actually understand the ancient software running in the background, we can start taking action to bypass it. Here is your practical blueprint. These are 3 neuroscience-backed strategies designed specifically to outsmart your evolutionary wiring. We're going to make your future self a character, we're going to deliberately shrink the unknown, and we are going to audit your comfort. Let's break these down one by one.
Step 1. You've got to stop thinking about your future as just some vague concept. Concepts do not motivate human beings. Vivid realities do. You need to picture an actual, highly specific scene 3 years from now. See yourself in a specific room, doing a specific thing, either because of the choice you're making today or in spite of it. Give your future self a face, put them in an environment. Your brain just doesn't respond to abstractions, but it strongly responds to vivid scenes it can actually visualize.
Step 2. Shrink the unknown. The crucial takeaway here is that your brain doesn't actually fear change itself, it fears ambiguity. It fears the unmapped cliff edge. So, before you take a massive leap, you have to do some reconnaissance. If your biggest fear is starting a business, don't just blindly quit your day job. Go talk to 5 people who started a business this month. If your fear is having a tough conversation with someone, write the script out and say the exact words out loud in an empty room first. Every single hour you spend shrinking the unknown is an hour your nervous system stops treating that change as a lethal threat.
Step 3. Stop treating your comfort zone as the enemy and start interrogating it instead. Ask yourself, what is this familiar routine actually protecting me from feeling? Boredom, for example, is rarely just emptiness. It's often armor against disappointment. Once you can precisely name what your comfort is defending you against, it loses so much of its power over you. Remember, a vague sense of dissatisfaction can quietly run your life for decades, but a named dissatisfaction, that has an expiration date.
I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. 5 years from now, someone is going to be living the results of what you do and what you don't do this very month. And the person living those results is closer to you than you think. They are so much closer than a stranger. The question was never really whether you know what to do. We established that you already do. The real question is whether you are finally willing to stop protecting a life you have so clearly outgrown. So ask yourself honestly, what are you actually choosing every single time you choose the